Education is not about Betsy DeVos, nor about any other individual. It's about students. It's about acknowledging the innate value of every single one of them and embracing the belief that each one has an important role to play, a purpose, if you will. If you accept that, then each of them should have the freedom to develop and achieve their fullest potential. That's why I'm here. Let's stop and rethink the definition of public education. Today, it's often defined as one type of school funded by taxpayers, controlled by government. But if every student is part of the public, then every way and every place a student learns is ultimately of benefit to the public. That should be the new definition of public education. While it's true that 90% of students today are enrolled in traditional public schools, it's also true that 60% of their parents say they would prefer something different if only they had the freedom to choose. So I'll continue to fight for their freedom. Let me just start by talking just a little bit more broadly about Education Freedom Scholarships and put it in the context of the fact that for 50 or 60 years now, we have been doing essentially the same thing, spending more money around it and expecting different results. And if we expect to have better and different results for kids, we've got to do something different. So this proposal has the appeal across a broad swath of people, those who really care about students and their future. We know that there are too many kids today that are stuck in schools that aren't working for them.
Is it appealing to the people who matter, who are going to have to get this passed?
We are working to make that very evident to them. The reality is that there's a wide range of choices that could be adopted, as I referenced in my remarks. We want people to think very broadly of what introducing more choices to students could mean.
We also know that, in districts that have choice, there is a sense of some students feeling left behind when there's so much mobility and students are going across town for different opportunities. Do you think resources matter at all in improving public schools and neighborhood schools?
Well, clearly resources are a very important part of the equation, but I think having the ability to direct and control where those resources go on the child or family level really helps families become wise consumers and make decisions based upon what their particular needs are for their child, what their, how their child learns or how their child is interested in pursuing their future. What more education freedom will ultimately do also is introduce a whole lot more approaches to learning that we heretofore have not been able to really experience. We'll have a lot more creativity and a lot more imagination brought to bear.
So we also have teachers striking across the country for higher pay and smaller classrooms and that sort of thing, not necessarily professional development, but other priorities. Do you support them in that advocacy as well?
Well, first of all, I think great teachers need to be well paid, and every state has their issue to be dealt with their teachers. I would just say that I think it would be I think it's important that adults have adult disagreements on adult time and that they not ultimately hurt kids in the process. And I think too often they're doing so by walking out of classrooms and having their arguments in the way that they are. I think teaching as a profession should be a highly honored and respected profession. I think it's been deprofessionalized in many ways, and I think great teachers perhaps should be making at least half as much as what Randy Weingarten does at $500,000 a year.
Oh. On the topic of guidance, so in various roles before this one, you've advocated on behalf of low-income and minority students in gay and LGBTQ Americans. Yet under your leadership, the department has reversed policy positions that kind of clarified and encouraged protections for these historically vulnerable populations, which has generated a lot of criticism and concern that the department may be eroding civil rights for these particular populations. Can you address that concern and tell us what it is that the department is looking to do when it takes these kinds of measures?
Well, let me just first say that I am, and we are at the department, very committed to ensuring all students' civil rights are protected. I'm also committed to following the law. I'm a firstborn child. I'm a rule follower, and I do that regularly. But I am not going to overstep and make law where there isn't law. And so I think the things that you are referencing were overreaches on the part of the previous administration. They were protections on paper, frankly. They were not actual protections.
You have not resigned despite so many rumors of such a thing happening. So we don't know what's going to happen in the election next year, but would you sign on for 4 more years if asked?
I'm not sure my husband would be okay with that.